Ian Trottier here for another discussion of truth. Today happens to be Friday. Since 2016, I've been doing discussions of truth and truths uh, on Wednesdays, but I do alternative days once in a while. HighStakesTreason.com is releasing in days. Um, Postal Press is the publisher, and I'm anticipating there's a small contingency of us that have been working on this for a couple of years to get this out. It exposes allegedly, very serious financial crimes by the former head slash otherwise director of the CIA while in office. Um, now, the 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 crimes are committed on the back of the trust of the American people in regards to what he knew about alleged terrorists uh, entering and going from the country domestically, and the allegation, of course, that is presented in the book reaches beyond the border. So this becomes a NATO issue. But I've been working on this story with an information source for a couple of years. That source, former FBI, has been working on the story for many years, long before me. High Stakes Treason is the name of the book. It's my book. I author it. And we are days away from announcing the release date. So the last I heard, the release date will be this month, July 2025, of course. So stay tuned for that. As always, you can find my information, some of the recent articles I've written at iantrottier.com. That's IANTROTTIER.com. The last year and a half, I worked a lot with investigating what was happening at the border. Some of the focus, of course, of different subjects and topics that I've tackled have changed due to the policies of the current administration. So, but what I exhort listeners and viewers to really investigate is what is the meaning of the deep state. So a lot of fingers get pointed at the Democrat Party, the deep state. I disagree. I think both major political parties in the country, are well manipulated by the banking system. So those who are familiar with my work um, understand that my major issue is the federal deficit, right? A multi-trillion dollar, 30 plus trillion dollar deficit. I don't know what it stands at now. I'm sure it's not any better with Trump in office, even though I do favor his politics over the previous president and certainly over Obama. He's an America first, and that's certainly my agenda. But I don't think enough is being done. I know enough is not being done to wipe out the federal deficit, and furthermore, question the motives and the happenings of the Federal Reserve banking system, which is tied into the global central banking system, and therein relies a better understanding, in my opinion, of what the deep state is. So the deep state is not a domestic political party. It's not a unity of a collective of policymakers in the United States per se. The deep state is more aligned to a global agenda. We saw a lot of that come out during the COVID crisis. And of course, the reason I started Discussions of Truth was because of the Zika virus and being exposed to that in 20, yeah, it was 20, was it 2016? 2020, fall of 2016, I think it was. Yeah, right about the time I started Discussions of Truth on Winwood Radio. So I have today is an incredible young lady out of New York City. She's running for District 5, City Council, or for New York City spot. That is currently occupied by a woman named Julie Menon. She happens to be a Democrat. And my guest today, of course, represents the GOP. So as soon as she signs on, I'll bring her in. Here's Alina right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Alina Bonsell. Hey,
Hi, am
hi there.
I?
Hi, good to see you
Hi.
again.
You too.
Uh,
Am I sounding good and centered? I don't know.
yeah, I think everything's great. So for viewers, Alina and I tried to connect on a Wednesday. That's the typical slot that I host the podcast. And on my end, there was some technical difficulties. So we're giving this another go, and everything checks out just fine, Alina. So thanks for rejoining the show. Um, Alina, for those folks that are not aware of who you are, please take a moment and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yes. So I am a candidate in this year's general election, which is in November. I'm a Republican candidate for city council. I'm endorsed by the Manhattan GOP. I'm running for District 5, which, for those that live in New York City, is the East Side, 58 to 96th Street, and Roosevelt Island. So every seat is up for re-election in City Hall, and we need to really create a firewall in City Council this year more than ever.
Yeah, so that's a brave move on your part, and I think your district also goes out to Roosevelt Island. Island, is that right?
Yeah, it has all of Roosevelt Island. There's about 12,000 residents. Roosevelt Island doesn't get a lot of limelight in New York. It's the forgotten island, but yeah, we have it's
So
actually a very cute place.
okay, I've never been myself. Alina, tell us a little bit about the incumbent, the woman you're running up against, and some of the policies that you are going to focus on that she's sticking to that you'd like to change. Go ahead.
So she's a career politician. She's been in politics for 20 years, and she decided to become a city council person because it seems to be very beneficial for her to be in this role because her husband is a big real estate developer, very well known, very, very successful. And as a city council person, you control all the variances in your district. What does that mean? So it means that when a developer wants to knock down a bunch of four-story little old buildings and build a giant skyscraper. The city council member has to approve this to happen. So it's a very, very convenient position for her to have. But she has done not really anything significant for the community or for the district. She built two platforms for small business and for parents looking to find, childcare. Those platforms have no metrics of success. Those platforms don't really address those issues whatsoever. And, she totes around saying that she passed 17 bills, then another site says 13 bills, but the reality she passed four. Those are two of the platforms. And the other stuff is, swimming lessons for underprivileged kids, which actually does not really affect our district at all. We actually have a very affluent district compared, to many other districts in the city. And the last one is, she created some regulation for hospitals regarding what they're billing and what they're charging. But again, there is no metric to see how that's even working and how the city is even saving money on that. But I could talk more. There's a couple of other things that she's not done not so great for the hotel industry. She created a lot of regulation that is driving small hotels, mom and pop hotels out of our city because they cannot. pay these fines. They cannot adhere to these regulations that she created. So she created a very big disaster for anybody that ever was an employee of that industry or owned a hotel. And then another thing is small business. She hurt more small business than any city council candidate ever, and that's according to the Small Business Congress. Because they said when she was first elected, she was also given a secondary position as chair of small business. And before her was a bill to protect small business. And it had, buy-in from the majority of council at the time. So if it were to be heard, it would have been passed, but she let it quietly expire.
Mhm. Okay, so obviously you're a proponent of small business and building the middle class rather than centralizing the larger players and big box items. What is it that you see in your district, Alina? And you moved to? Did you move to New York? You were born in Ukraine. Is that your history?
I was born when it was still the former Soviet Union, so before the collapse, and my family immigrated to the United States because during that time we were able to immigrate legally because we were the minority of that country. We were Ashkenazi Jewish, and there was an opportunity under a communist regime, to leave and be able to practice religion and so forth and so on. So we were part of a very select group that was able to come to America and given, an opportunity to be educated here and to grow and become American citizens. My parents became citizens. I became a citizen. I was a minor still at the time. And, like every other immigrant, they came for the American dream. And this dream now seems to be in question if somebody like Mandani comes to power. But there's one way to stop him, and this is not getting a lot of attention because people are not really discussing this. But city council is the legislative body. They make all the laws for New York City. A mayor cannot make any laws, cannot do any of the things that he proposes to do. A mayor can, appoint judges, a mayor can appoint, commissioners, anything like that, right? Like just like Trump can outfit his candidate, that's what a mayor can do. But any piece of law regarding tax, grocery stores, anything that he wants to do has to go through city council. And 51 city council members have to decide on this. If 26 say no, it's done. It's thrown out. If 26 says yes, it will become law. The problem is right now we have a majority Democratic council. We only have six candidates. Not six, we have only six Republicans right now, and we need to have 26 in order to create a firewall. Every city council seat is up for re-election in November 4th, so this is more than just a mayoral race. It is a legislative race. So if we can flip 20 more seats in city council, we can restore balance, we can restore order, and we can save New York City and protect it against any dangerous legislation.
Yeah. So as you're talking about this, and I didn't realize there are only six Republicans in the city council, but somebody else I've had on the show in the past, I think is from Brooklyn. I might be wrong on that. His name is Heshi Tischler. Are you familiar with that name?
No.
I'd be happy to make the introduction. I don't. I think he ran for a seat in Brooklyn a
Okay.
while ago. I think he lost that, but he's going to rerun. So you've got a lot to deal with. And like I think I mentioned, I think it's very brave of you, and certainly very noble. And some of the things that, as an outsider, as I don't live in New York, but I love visiting New York. I One of the things I see is the kind of the dichotomy of how the politics in New York City seem to change. Right, they kind of cycle. So it's like 20 years ago there was Giuliani, right, and certainly Trump was a practicing Democrat at one point, and then he changed to become a Republican. And I think a lot of people, regardless of their political aisle, they assimilate to one party or the other, depending on kind of where that party generally fits with their beliefs or views. Because if you look at like John F. Kennedy, right, he was a Democrat, but A
Hmm.
lot of people align with his views politically. So I don't know. Certainly, the Democrat Party today, and we'll kind of get into this right now, but certainly, the Democrat Party today has a very fringe and radical element to it, which is this guy that's got the DNC nod, Zoran Mandani, pardon me, and
Hmm.
he was born in Uganda, I think, right? So he's not
Hmm.
American born. He's not even what's his. You tell us a little bit about this person and kind of what you know about his policies.
So you're right. Everybody in New York City just runs with the party that they think they have the best shot of getting elected. It does not necessarily mean that their ideologies and the things that they want to do really aligns with the notion of that party entirely. It's sort of like, well, you know, what is the probability that I'll win if I run as a Democrat, right? And that's how it is in New York City, unfortunately. But at the same time, we have so many dangerous liberals that make such awful policies and decisions and really run the city into the ground. And a lot of these people don't come from, well-versed backgrounds or, experiences or education, and they're just, creating havoc in our city. And we need to restore balance. The problem right now is that a lot of people, unfortunately, associate a Republican candidate, right, with things on a federal level. Those that are not big fans of Trump or what he's done, it's kind of like, they talk about don't be prejudiced, don't stereotype, don't be racist. But then it's exactly what they're doing. Before I even say anything, they already decided that they don't like me, that whatever I want to do is going to be bad, right? So how do we stop this? Because it's unfair, because you end up electing down the ballot and you elect actually really awful, terrible people just because you have this like stigma against Republicans. And as for Mandani, yeah, so he became a citizen in 2017, or that's from from what I read in 2017. And he became an assemblyman. He didn't have much experience in any kind of industry, but it's very easy to run for politics. You don't even need to go to college. You could be 18. Anybody could run, right? So, what does a person do that doesn't know what to do in life? They become an assemblyman, right?
And make your
So
laws, yeah.
yeah, so that's the thing. I always say this. It's like this is like one of the few things you can go from zero to hero without, working your way up. Just, luck and timing. And of course, if you're backed by a party in New York, our party doesn't really do the kinds of things that the Democratic Party does for their candidates. We're not financially supported at all. My party got me on the ballot. They did petitioning for me. I'm grateful they did all the heavy lifting in terms of that. But I always say, there is no party machine behind me. It's a grassroots effort. It's just me, my volunteers, everybody that I put together myself, and I'm just, me. So that's why I try to separate myself from the stigma of, the federal Republican persona, because I'm running as a moderate Republican, right? I don't agree with everything that comes out of the federal government, right? And I hope to appeal to other moderates, whether you're considered Democrat or, you know, and I think now he created kind of like a window, to be honest, of opportunity in New York. Do you agree for Republicans to?
Yeah, I think it's a great time. It's a great time for people that are conservative or moderate and Republican that align with those types of values. I think it's a great time to get into the political arena in New York City, like yourself. Uh, a couple of things that I wanted to mention is that again, Mondami's. I don't know that he's self proclaimed himself to be, but I know that the president has labeled him a communist. And things that I read in the paper is that he's a socialist, and certainly that is socialism is or socialist policy type labels are common in the Democrat Party today. A communist label is pretty more extreme, I think. Do
Mhm.
you think, from listening and what you've heard from this candidate, would you say that he's aligned with being a communist? Do you think he's a communist?
My mother said that even though we lived in a communist country, it wasn't actually fully communist. It was actually a socialist country because it's We still had to pay for food. There wasn't an endless supply, and enough for everyone, which technically under communism, that's what you're supposed to have. So what he is he's kind of grandiose, and from what I know is that he initially was always supported by Soros' son. I knew this in April. I know recently it's been publicized, and that makes perfect sense. As much as he wants to say this was a grassroots campaign that started with two full-time employees, and this is what he did, so he's able to now run a city because, look how far he's come and how capable he has presented himself to be. The realistically, that's not what happened. There was actually a few posts, a different analysis that compared the published New York Finance Board reportings to what they raised and to the
Mhm.
amount of people and resources they utilize, comparing that it was not at all possible to do that on that kind of budget. So there definitely was outside money coming in. So that makes total sense. But I don't know. I think he's just like a lot of Democrats are just sort of like the front face, and there's people behind him that are pulling
Yeah.
the strings, and we don't know what the actual outcome will be. We don't know if he's just telling people what they want to hear just to get elected, because
Mhm.
there is no way logically he could do any of the things that he says he's going to do.
Interesting. What are the couple of things that he's saying that he's going to do that you think is just not obtainable or achievable?
Well, so first of all, taxes, it's pretty funny, right? Like raising the 2% that he wants to raise on taxes. So in order to raise taxes, even city taxes, first you have to get city council to say yes, right? So even let's say city council 26 people says yes,
Yeah.
Zoran, it's a great idea. Then it goes to Albany. And then the Senate and the Assembly has to say yes. And then it goes to Kathy Hochul, who already made notion that she would say no.
Ah. Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
just one example. But like I said, anything that he wants, if he wants to build, grocery stores, anything that he's proposing will not be able to happen unless he gets all these city council people on board. And unfortunately, right now, there's a lot of people that do support him at the current council. But when election happens, we don't have to vote for them. So anybody that is voting this election, it's not just a mayoral race. Research your candidates. Don't vote for those that will support Zoran. That's simple as that.
So you and I have been in communication recently, and I know the person. Well, anyway, um, somebody helping you promote you is somebody is a friend of mine, and one of the things I wanted to bring to light for viewers is that the wife of Mondami, and I want to spend too much time on Mondami, but we're looking at pretty critical time in New York City and its politics. And thank goodness there's people like you, Alina, that are running. But um, Ramadu or Ramad Uwa, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his wife's name, but she's got a couple of posts on her website that are very radical and are basically promoting a revolution. Whereas the quote says, "Sooner or later, people will rise against tyranny," and there's three women with fire flames behind them. And they're not white women, so I suspect his wife was born in Texas, but she's from Syrian parents. So I have nothing against an impoverished group reaching for more power, but certainly nobody wants I wouldn't think. Maybe some people do, but trying to avert some type of a revolution in that sense is not what I think is of the best interest of the people. Certainly not in New York City. Do you see as we kind of wind down with Mondami? But do you see that type of person supporting Mondami? Whereas this is kind of let's call it maybe an Antifa or a violent a kind of sect. Are those the type of people that are supporting this candidate?
So I don't know what tyranny in reference to New York City. What does New York City have to do with tyranny? I just don't. I'm assuming she's speaking in regards to maybe the federal government. I don't know. Um, but it's interesting because I was out in the streets yesterday. We were campaigning with my team. I was in the park. Various people stopped over to talk to me. And there's, obviously very, very democratic people, very liberal people, and they're
Yeah,
like, well, he's fine, you know, mu Muslim, is a pe is a peaceful religion. They're not gonna do anything bad. I'm not really worried about that. It's in their head for some
yeah,
reason, they've convinced themselves that nothing bad will happen in regards to, supporting an outbreak of a revolution of Muslim people to come and fight this so-called tyranny, right? So I don't know why people believe that Islam is a peaceful religion. Maybe it says so in the Bible, but through time and time, what we've seen in the news in our lifetime, I would not agree with that.
yeah. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention is obviously you are not. I don't think you're Muslim. You said that you came over as Ashkenazi Jew, but physically you don't resemble somebody being from the Middle East, and you have clearly blonde hair, unless you dye it. So, do you do you
I get highlights. Yeah, I get
yeah
highlights.
do you encounter folks in New York that literally kind of try to attack you because of your physical attributes and the way you look? Are you seeing that at all? I'm just curious.
I don't, like you said, I don't look typical Jewish, so I don't get kind of put in that quadrant, right? Even when I tell people that I am, they don't know if they believe me. And then I'm like, I did 23andMe, I'm 99.4, I'll show you my DNA. Um, but that's the thing. So the current council member that I'm running against is also Jewish. And, according to all her posts and articles, she's a prevalent force in the Jewish community and advocate and such and such, right? So I actually put out, an article and I said, why has she not said anything against Mandami? Our area where we live is very well saturated with Jewish Americans, and they're very, very nervous. And somebody that represents the community, right, should at least speak to them and calm them down over the things that they're afraid of would occur if Mandami, has rain. And she hasn't done this. So what do you infer from this? Somebody like that clearly will always choose the party.
Mhm. So, Alina, when you're elected in District 5, what are the top three things that you're going to do when you get into office? The first three things.
So I was motivated to run because what is very personal to me is family court reform. I've been in that broken bureaucratic system for over 10 years and still going just to have access to my children where the system has been weaponized against me. So that's my very important mission. As a city council member, obviously you don't impact state laws directly, but I would have access to people that do. Um, Again, small business, protecting small business, evaluating the Small Business Protection Act that was intentionally killed by the former council member. I really want to support our community because we have so many empty storefronts. And then, crime is a big thing, obviously, in New York. I think we need to reopen state mental institutions, which were closed many decades ago because New York City just did not want to deal with it anymore because they got into some sticky situations and they really, you know, let the people of our city down. A lot of accidents are happening till this day. People are getting pushed off trains, people are getting stabbed because homelessness is a multi-tier problem, right? There's different degrees of homelessness. And the dangerous mentally ill homeless, they need real care. They can't just we say, hey, we have a place and a bed for you, right? We need to really address the root of their problem. They need, it could be drug addiction or, they need medications, they need oversight, they need a bed, they need full-time care. And it's very neglectful to just let people like that run our city rampant and then also hurt innocent civilians. So we already have legislation. Mental hygiene has laws that will make you legally detain somebody that is a harm to others and themselves and institutionalize them. So we need politicians that are strong, politicians that won't be afraid to use these laws and, save the people of our city from any further harm.
Well, excellent points, Alina. And where, as we wind down here, where can people find that article that you wrote? Where can they find information on it?
If you Google me, yeah, if you just say Alina, if you put Alina Bonsell in Google and put Julie Menon, who I'm running against, or just put Mandani, you'll see a bunch of press that I have had since I started the election.
And Newsmax referred you as a firewall, correct?
Well,
Against Mandela.
that's the terminology that I use to help people understand the importance of city council. Because if you can create a council of sensible people that will not vote for things that will further run our city into the ground, then we are the firewall. And I want to be the firewall. And you need to elect candidates that will protect us, not candidates that will support dangerous legislation, such as what Mandami is advocating right now.
So the election is in November. Are there any events that you want to pinpoint as that you've got going on between now and then for
I,
listeners to?
yeah, I have a fundraiser event on the Upper East Side where I live. So if you go to my website, alinabonsell.com, and you go under events, there's information about that. It's next week on the 23rd.
And you have hats and T-shirts and stuff like that?
I'm not selling merch yet, but I don't know. Should I?
Yeah, I think you should. You should. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Alina Bonsell. Uh, Elena, I want to let you have the last word. And I, it sounds like you're a great candidate for this district. And anyway, some last words for listeners and viewers.
So, last words is, I believe that everybody should have great education in New York. Our city schools are failing our kids right now. I believe that we should be able to live in clean streets, safe streets, walk home safely at night, right? And not be pushed out of our homes or businesses due to, not being able to afford them anymore. So I'm running because somebody has to, and somebody has to do it for other reasons that are, unjustly motivated for their own bottom line. I'm running for all good reasons, and I hope people, look at me without the stigma of a Republican in New York City and look at me as a candidate that really wants to do the right thing by everybody.
Awesome. Elena, thanks for joining Discussing the Truth, and I look forward to speaking to you in the future.
Thank you. Bye.